Recording in progress.
Hello, I'm Louisa. Thank you for joining me for restorative yoga practice today. For our practice, we'll need a bolster, or an alternative might be a rolled up chunky blanket or big towel, or maybe a couple of pillows that you could stack together. Do also grab some blankets. One might be for warmth, one might be for padding. And also some bricks if you have them, some yoga blocks and bricks, and possibly cushions, depending on what you've got available at home. So some cushions off of the sofa would be great. So to start with, we'll come to a comfortable seated position. So I've just got a small cushion under the pelvis. You're welcome to sit with the legs crossed if that's comfortable. Otherwise, more of a butterfly shape for the legs is fine. So whatever feels most comfortable for you. So the prop will just tip the pelvis forward a little and help us find a bit more space and ease around the hips and the low back. And you may wish to use a brick underneath your knees just so you've got support around the hips and the legs as well. So we'll get yourself comfy, anchor through the sit bones, find length through the spine, and just begin to invite some gentle movement of the shoulders. You could shrug up and release and begin to circle them down, or maybe do one at a time and invite a little bit of rotation in the upper back. Let's take a couple more of these. And when you soften the shoulders down, we'll take a seated twist to each side. So searching for length as you inhale, and then exhale, rotating round to one side, opposite hand to leg, other arm or hand behind. Let's just stay for a couple of breaths. When you're ready to unravel, we'll inhale to lengthen, exhale to come back, and then just to the other side, to inhale to lengthen, exhale to rotate, opposite arm to leg, other arm behind. Couple of breaths searching for length and ease. And you can inhale to lengthen, exhale to come back. And when you're back in the midline, just turn your head once to each side, just finding ease at a pace that suits you. And then we'll maintain that sense of softening through the shoulders, that length through the neck as you just gently tilt your head to one side. So ear to shoulder, stay for a breath. We come back through to the center. Other side, stay for a breath. And then back through to the center. And once you're here, I invite you to bring one hand to your chest, one hand to your tummy, and we'll take a few moments with our three-part yoga breathing. So as we inhale, we'll gently begin to fill up the chest, the ribs and the belly. And then as you breathe out, you can soften the belly, the ribs and the chest. So if you can inhale and exhale through the nose. If you need to exhale through the mouth, and that's okay as well. Eyes could be open or closed. Just make sure you feel comfy. And you can begin to inhale, filling up chest, ribs and belly, and then exhale, softening belly, ribs and chest. So finding that gentle expansion and that gentle release. So as you breathe in, we're trying to find expansion forwards and backwards and sideways of the whole thoracic cavity. And as you breathe out, we're softening back down again. So breathing in, chest, ribs and belly. Breathing out, belly, ribs and chest. And you can stay with that breath and maybe begin to think to yourself, I'm breathing in as you breathe in, and I'm breathing out as you breathe out. Let's just take 3 more rounds here. And you can come back to this breath focus whenever you need to during the rest of our class. And when you're ready, you can release the arms, take any gentle movement you might need through the upper body. And whatever position you're in, whether you're cross-legged or in that more of a butterfly leg position, you can stay, or you might want to switch to the other shape. And we're going to grab your bolster and come into supported bound angle pose. So I'll show you from the front and from the side. So I've just got the bolster in front of me. And I'm going to just lean forward, so you adjust the angle that suits you so that you can support your forehead on the bolster. Your arms can release wherever they're comfortable, palms up or down. And we're going to stay in this shape for a few breaths. And just show you sideways on as well. And while you're breathing in this shape, I'm going to just do a short reading about ahimsa, one of the yamas in yoga philosophy, and the yamas detail of restraints and guidances, and ahimsa deals with non-violence towards others and towards yourself. So that is to connect to our theme of love for ourselves and care for ourselves to help us care for others. So get yourself comfy in your chosen shape here. Just releasing with your breath. If this isn't comfortable or you don't have a bolster, you could maybe bring hand over hand and rest your arms on perhaps the edge of the sofa or a table and release forward from there. It may be that you prefer to keep your spine more neutral and lengthened, or you can just gently soften and round if that feels comfortable for you. So we'll be in this shape for a couple of moments. And as you settle in, I'll just do this short reading that I mentioned, but no need for you to change position. It's from this book, The Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele. So we can have hearts that are full of love for others and intentions to love that are pure. But the truth is, we will express that love for others by treating them the same way we treat ourselves. Love lies at the core of non-violence and begins with our love of self. Not a love that is egocentric, but a love that is forgiving and lenient. A love that sees the humour in the imperfections and accepts the fullness of the human expression. Only when we find this love for all the parts of ourselves can we begin to express fully the love that wells up inside of us for others. Finding this love for all the parts of ourselves means we have to forgive ourselves. Without forgiveness, we carry guilt like a heavy burden around our hearts. Guilt holds our love for self and others hostage and keeps us bound to a one-sided expectation of the human experience. Whatever we find ourselves engaged in, this duel of ahimsa, or non-violence, asks us to step lightly, do no harm, and to honour the relationship we have with the earth, with each other, and with ourselves. So let's take just a couple more breaths where you are. And when you're ready, just slowly begin to unravel. You can pop your bolster or other prop just to the side. Invite some gentle movements back into the upper body. And we take a side reach before we head towards our mat. So give yourself space to the side. You're still sat nice and tall. You can inhale, float one arm up. Exhale as you soften up and over, breathing length into both sides of the spine, softening the shoulder. We're stacking back up, and then other side, inhale up, exhale over, softening as you go, and then stacking back up again. Welcome to do one more of those each side if you wish. And then we'll get set up to head towards our mat. Initially, a little bit of 4-point kneeling with some cat-cow, and then we'll go into a supported child's pose. So for that position, you can pop your bolster lengthways on your mat and use one of your bricks to prop up the head end, so you're on a slight incline, which is more comfortable to keep the head a little higher than the heart in some cases for blood pressure or any congestion in the head or sinuses. So we'll be with our child's position pose in a moment. You might be more comfortable to pop the blanket underneath your knees just for a little bit of extra padding and warmth. I'm going to get mine ready now. So I've got my props ready, and we'll just start with our 4-point kneeling before we release in towards our child's pose. So arms under shoulders, knees under hips. You can spread out through the fingers, draw the fingertips up and press yourself away from the mat with space between the shoulders and length through the spine. So for your cow shape, you can begin to shine your gaze and breastbone forward, softening your low back and belly towards the mat as you inhale. Exhale as we begin to lengthen and round the other way. So tucking the head, tucking the tail with space between the shoulders. You can begin to inhale as you find your cow shape, and then exhale as you begin to round into cat. So we'll take just a couple more of those, making that gentle movement through the spine. And then we can soften down, and I'm going to come towards my child's pose position, so almost straddling that bolster. If you need more padding behind knees, use a cushion or your other blanket. And then we just release forward over that bolster, so almost hugging it. You can turn your head to one side, and we'll stay here for a few breaths and then turn the head to the other side. See how your arms and shoulders feel. If you felt you needed to prop them on another cushion or a block, do feel free. And we'll just be with our breath in this shape, feeling that expansion of breath, that softening of breath towards your bolster. The breath comes in and the breath goes out. You may wish to stay as you are, or perhaps just turn your head to the other side, softening in, getting comfy. Let's take at least 3 more breaths here. And when you're ready, just really slowly turn towards your prop, towards your bolster, and slowly walk yourself back up again. And you may wish to repeat that shape of our supported child's pose. Otherwise, we do more of a revolved position, so with some rotation. So this is only suitable if you're comfortable in a more mermaid zigzag type sit. So you might prefer to avoid it if not and stay with that child's pose. Also, this shape isn't suitable if you're pregnant or menstruating or early postnatal or any abdominal issues, or perhaps if rotation is irritating. For any low back issues, you can just repeat the child's pose that we previously did. So if this is okay, I'm in this mermaid shape, and you can adjust the legs, whatever feels best for you. I'm kind of nudging up to my hip close to my edge of my bolster, and I'm going to turn to look towards it and then lay myself over the bolster. So I'm more comfortable turning my head the same direction as my knees. You might prefer to turn your head the other way. It's not necessary. You see how you go. I also prefer to support my front arm with a cushion or blanket or something, because it feels it's a little bit too much hanging in space. So if you need to grab a prop as well, please do. And we'll take a few breaths to soften here. Adjust the legs for comfort, or you could always stack the legs if that was more comfortable for you, perhaps using a block between the knees. And just softening as you breathe and release. Feel the breath come in and the breath go out. Take a couple more breaths on this side. And when you're ready to unravel, just slowly turn to look towards your bolster, towards your mat, and gradually walk yourself back up again. I'm going to move my blanket to the other side in readiness. But before we go on to the other side, take a moment in a seated position, the bolster behind you. If it suits knees and hips, draw them in towards you, give yourself a big hug for a few breaths. If not, you could come to legs crossed or that butterfly shape and just gently release forward for a couple of breaths before we transition to the other side. And when you are ready, we'll explore that shape on the second side. So you're in your mermaid shape. Snuggle up towards your bolster. Turn to look towards it as you walk yourself down, and you turn your head to whichever side is most comfortable. It might be towards the same direction that your knees are pointing. It may be the other way. So just softening and releasing, adjusting the legs as needed as we take a few breaths here. Feeling the breath coming in and the breath going out. And take at least 2 more breaths here. And then when you're ready, you can slowly begin to unravel towards your bolster, towards the mat. Gently walking yourself back up. And we come back towards that seated position, whether that's drawing yourself into a tight little ball shape and giving yourself a hug, or whether you're in this different shape, taking a little release forward. A few breaths. And then we'll stack back up. And we'll just come to a comfortable seat and take a few moments with the breathing practice called Nadi Shodhana, which was alternate nostril breathing. So I'm sitting on my blanket for comfort. You might wish to use your blocks under your legs as we did earlier. So for this practice, it requires being able to breathe in and out through your nose, and we're going to close alternate nostrils. So we breathe in through one nostril, close that nostril, and breathe out through the other nostril, close that nostril, and so on. So you take your dominant hand, for me it's my right hand, and I'm going to support my arm with my other hand, and we're trying not to lean or fall forward into that shape. So your thumb would close your nostril, and then your index and middle finger could either rest between your eyebrows, or you could tuck them in towards your palm, and then your ring finger and little finger, and I'm trying to tuck my little finger behind my ring finger, could close off your left nostril. So let's just try a couple of rounds as breathing in and out through the nose and having this shape of your hands ready. Eyes can be open or closed. And if the nasal breathing is okay, we can add on to that. If you would rather just come back to that 3-part yogic breathing we did earlier, that is absolutely fine as well. We'll just do a few rounds. We'll start breathing in through the right and we'll finish breathing out through the left. Go at a pace that suits you. And it may be that you're comfortable to add in a short pause as we transition sides. Let's see how you go. So I'm going to close the left nostril and begin to breathe in through the right. I'm closing the right and breathing out through the left. In through the left. Closing left, out through the right. In through the right. Closing right and out through the left. In through the left. Closing left and out through the right. In through the right. Closing right, out through the left. In through the left. Closing left and out through the right. Let's do a couple more. In through the right. Closing right, out through the left. In through the left. Closing left and out through the right. In through the right. Closing right and out through the left. Release once you breathe out through that left side. And just take a few rounds of breath as you are here. Notice how you feel. This Nadi Shodhana alternate nostril breathing is really beneficial to help us sort of balance our energy channels in the body, help us to find calm and focus. Lovely. And then from here, we're going to transition to our mat. So you can keep your props handy. Move my blanket to the side. We're going to lie down on the mat. Let's have a bolster, your bolster to one side. And I'm going to have a block or perhaps a small cushion between the knees as we come into a supine, supported supine twist. So this is a gentle rotation through the low back. And then we're going to do a sideline position as well. So if rotation doesn't suit you, you might just want to do the sideline position that I'll show you in just a moment. So we'll come to lying on your mat. You could either lie onto your side and then roll onto your back, or you could slowly roll yourself down with support. Use the hands around the back of the thighs as you release back down to the mat. So I'm going to bring a prop between the knees. I'm just using a very thin head cushion because that's more comfortable for me, or a blanket would be fine. And my bolster is to the side. So I'm going to gently draw the legs in towards me a little and let them roll to the side and support my shins on my bolster. And I've got that support between the knees as well. So you could bring opposite arm to opposite thigh, or arms open wide to the ceiling, or you could bring the arms into more of a cactus shape of your arms. I'm trying to keep the opposite shoulder anchored to the mat and finding ease around the neck, so your head could be centered or turn the opposite way to your legs. So just settle in and get comfy. It might be you need to lower the legs down or draw them up towards you. See what suits you best. And we'll stay for a few breaths here before we try the sideline position that I mentioned. Excuse me while I just adjust the microphone. So feeling that breath coming in and that breath going out. And finding ease and softening. And it might be that you're really comfy here, and if so, feel free to stay as you are. Otherwise, we'll transition to the side lying pose that I mentioned. So I'm going to remove my block from between my knees and just bring my legs back towards the mat for a moment. And as I roll onto my side, my bolster can now support my top leg. You can lay on your arm or use your cushions or your blanket for head support. And I've just lengthened out the underneath leg. It's slightly in front of my hip, slightly turned out. So just finding comfort here. You may wish to rest your hand on your bolster or a blanket or your block. And we'll just take a few breaths here. Just softening and finding ease. Feeling the breath coming in and the breath going out. Let's take a couple more breaths here. And whenever you're ready, you start to draw the legs a little closer together and we'll just roll onto your back. So just center yourself on your mat, and you can give yourself a little hug with hands and arms either over or under the knees. So draw the legs in. It might feel nice to gently rock side to side. You may wish to lightly have your hands on your knees and just stir the thighs and the hips a few times. And then we'll just get ready to do the same on the other side. So you can bring your prop between your knees, your block, and move your bolster to your second side. Just adjusting as need be. And you can gently draw the legs towards you and then roll them towards the side, supporting your shins on the bolster, maybe with some head support. You can bring opposite hand to thigh if that's comfortable, or arms wide and palms up, or arms in that cactus shape. So find ease around the upper body. You could have your head centered, or you may wish to turn your head the opposite side to your legs. We're trying to keep the upper back and shoulders connected to the mat and find length down the side of the waist. So being with your breath here. Feeling that breath coming in, that breath going out, as just softening down to the mat. And as before, you may wish to stay in this shape for a little longer. Otherwise, we transition to our sideline pose on this side. I'm going to remove the block between my knees and just adjust so I can bring my top leg onto the bolster, supporting your head with your arm, with your cushion, and resting that top shin on the bolster as you lengthen the underneath leg away. You might want to rest your hand or arm on the bolster or on a cushion or blanket in front of you, and just soften as you take a few breaths on this side. Still feeling the breath coming in and the breath going out. I'll take a couple more breaths here. When you're ready, you can start to draw the legs a little closer towards each other, and we just roll back towards the centre of your mat. As before, you may wish to give yourself a gentle hug with hands under or over the knees, perhaps that little rocking, maybe the gentle circling of thighs into the hips. And then we'll lower the legs down one at a time, and we're going to come into a supported bridge shape. So it's here that you may want to use a strap or resistance band around your thighs in a moment, so make sure you've got that handy. I'm going to prop my pelvis up with the bolster, so this is only suitable if you're not menstruating, pregnant, or have any abdominal issues going on. If that is the case, you might just want to have a really small prop under the pelvis, perhaps a folded blanket or something, and not lift up too high. Otherwise, you could just stay on the mat and keep the feet flat on the floor and the knees bent, and breathe here as we just go through this shape. So to begin with, I'm going to have my legs over the bolster. You could lie onto your side or you could roll back again. It depends the comfort with regards to how much or how little head support you may wish. You might prefer to roll up a towel or blanket to support the neck, but not to prop it up too much. So once you're here, I'm going to get my band and loop just handy so I can reach that in a moment. And then we'll hover the pelvis up and then nestle the bolster or your cushion or pillow to wherever it feels comfortable for you, probably around tailbone. I don't need the head support once I've lifted up here. So legs are in line with hips, hips lovely and open, softening through the ribs, maybe tucking the shoulders underneath you, finding ease around the neck. So coming in to your breath, finding comfort. There's that support of your spine. It can sink down. It's like a hammock here. Feeling the breath going in and the breath going out. Take a couple more breaths here, and then option to transition towards a legs up the wall shape. Otherwise, you can stay as you are if that's more comfortable for you today. So if you do happen to have access to a clear wall in your space, you're very welcome to adjust yourself so you could let your legs rest up against that wall, so get a little closer to it. Otherwise, I'm using my loop, so I've just looped up my strap ready. I'm going to draw the legs towards me and just thread the loop around my thighs, so mid of the thighs roughly, and I've got a little bit of tension there so that I can just let the legs open out into it. So the legs have floated into this shape. I'm going to lengthen them without locking into the knees, so soft knees, soft ankles, as if they're floating against this imaginary wall shape. As another alternative, you could always keep the legs bent, and maybe that you rest the calves over a chair, over the edge of the sofa or something. That's a really nice alternative as well. So soften shoulders, be with your breath here. We're literally putting our feet up and still feeling the breath go in and the breath go out. This shape may not be suitable if you have high blood pressure. You might prefer to keep the knees bent or the legs over a chair, as I mentioned. And just take a few more breaths here. Couple more breaths. Whenever you're ready, and just start to soften the legs towards you. Release your strap. And we can slowly lower the legs down one at a time. You can remove your bolster or prop just away. If you feel again you'd like to give yourself a hug, please do. And we'll slowly roll onto your side and just return just to a seat for a moment, and we'll get our equipment set up for a supported back bend. So similar to how we set the bolster up for our child's pose earlier, we're going to prop the bolster lengthways on the mat. I'm grabbing a brick just to prop it up on a little bit of an incline. Depends how your low back feels. You might be comfortable to lie on the bolster as you are. I prefer to have a block or a folded blanket at the end just to lift my pelvis up a little, so it's not in so much of an extended position. And as you get into this shape, if it's comfortable to lengthen your legs, or you've got space to lengthen your legs, please do, but you may wish to support behind your knees so we're not locking into the knee joint. So I'm just seated and slowly walking myself down, so to lie on my bolster. Adjust as you go. You can open the arms as wide as is comfortable for your shoulders, to open the chest, open the heart, find comfort through the upper body. It might be legs lengthened suits you, so feel free to be there. Watch out for any locking of the knees, or you could have the legs bent. It might feel nice to take the legs wide and just let them roll in towards each other. Might feel nice for your hips and your back, or you could come into more of a butterfly shape, and again, welcome to use blocks underneath your knees to give you more support in that shape. So once you're settled, I'll come back to the breath in, breath out. Just feeling the breath coming in, breath going out. Letting that heart open to feel love for yourself, to enable you to share that love with others. Let's take a couple more breaths here. And whenever you're ready, you can either roll onto your side to come up, or you can slowly walk yourself back up to a seated shape. We're going to come to a supported bound angle pose, similar to how we started, but with the option to have the legs longer now, just as our counter pose from our supported back bend. I'm going to use a short foam roller just underneath the knees, or you could use a rolled up towel. Again, you may be more comfortable to prop your pelvis up. I'm just going to grab my cushion here, so you can perch on your cushion as before. If you need to keep the legs bent in either a cross-leg position or in your butterfly shape, that's fine. So sitting tall, getting comfy, legs as wide or narrow as you like, and then you can use the bolster perhaps rested on your feet or maybe between your feet, lengthened or rounded, whatever suits your back, and we'll just release forward, and we'll take a few breaths here, finding length and ease around the hips. Arms could release down to the mat, to your prop, to your legs, palms up or down, whatever is comfortable for you. Let's take just 2 or 3 more breaths here, and then we'll transition to our Shavasana. Whenever you feel ready, and slowly begin to unravel. If you want to do any gentle movements through the upper body or shake out the legs, please feel free. And then we'll get ourselves organised for our Shavasana today. If you have an eye pillow that you'd like to use, feel free to use that. You might wish to grab your blanket. You may wish to use some head support. I'm going to have the bolster underneath my knees. Get yourself cosy. As we settle here, we'll focus on our breath and do a body scan and soft belly meditation. So release yourself down. Maybe you use your eye pillow. Arms could be up to the ceiling, palms up if you would like. Otherwise, you could perhaps come to hand on belly, hand on chest as we were earlier, if that's comfortable for you. So softening down to the mat, feeling the breath come in, the breath go out. Finding that heaviness of your body towards the mat, being aware of the contact points we have with it, as if we were leaving a little imprint, like we're lying on warm sand. So feeling that heaviness of your head, softening the forehead, around the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw and the tongue. Finding length and ease of the neck, softening the chest, the shoulders and the arms, the wrists and the hands. Feeling that rise and fall as you inhale and exhale. You're focusing more into that soft belly as you breathe in and breathe out, that movement perhaps against your hands. Just letting go in this area. If you wish to bring both hands there, feel free. And option if you wish to think to yourself as you inhale soft and as you exhale belly. So inhale soft, exhale belly. Inhale soft, exhale belly. And then maintaining that soft belly as you breathe in and out, finding even weight of both sides of the pelvis, softening in the hips and the thighs, the knees, the shins, the calves, the ankles and the feet and the toes. So feel that breath rolling in and rolling out, like the waves rolling in and out on the shore. Let's take at least 3 more breaths here. And when you're ready, begin to invite some gentle movements into fingers and toes, gently wiggling. start to circle ankles and wrists. And you can let your head gently roll side to side. If you wish, take a full stretch as you lengthen out along your mat. No hurry to open your eyes. And then give yourself another hug, maybe rocking. And we'll really slowly roll onto one side. You can nudge your bolster out of the way. Lie on your arm or lie on a cushion. And just take a few breaths in this cozy fetal position shape before we come back to a comfortable seat. So when you're ready, propping yourself back up again. Sit on your blanket or a cushion if you need to. Support yourself with blocks. So find even weight through the pelvis. Search for length. I invite you to join me in a single chant of Om, or vibrational sound. So we will take an inhale and then we'll say Om as we breathe out. Om. And let's bring our hands towards our heart in our Anjali Mudra shape. So like a little bud, we've got space between the palms but the fingers are connected. Hands are towards the heart center. And let's just let that bud bloom into a little lotus flower shape. So keeping the little finger and the thumbs together, but opening out the rest of the fingers and your palms. So this is a symbol of love, which we can direct towards ourselves and direct outwards to those around us. So let that pour in and pour out. I'm going to close that little bud back, close the lotus back to a bud. And the divine light in me bows to the divine light in you. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me today, and have a lovely day.
Recording stopped.